Roblox is truly a different kind of gaming sphere. There is just so many different ways that people can come on the site, make something that is either terrible or one of the best games I've ever played before, and then leave and, leave that game for dead. And unfortunately, this does happen more often than not. Every game is going to die at some point, but some of them have a more premature fate than others. And to that, I point you to one of my favorite Roblox games of all time, that being none other than Project Star, a game that is based on the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure series. Now, being someone who was introduced to the series when I think part 6 was hypothetically going to come out with the anime, or it's been on hiatus for a long time, people were really anticipating it. I had only just gone into the series in general. I started with part 3 and I got sucked into the JoJo's void. And I started turning on to Roblox JoJo games, obviously starting with the most popular of which being Your Bizarre Adventure. And now that game never really scratched my JoJo urge, as you could say. It was good, but it was not enough for me to kind of get sucked into it enough. It was pretty boring for the kind of thing I was looking for. I was looking for more of a story-driven RPG where you increase your stats and you get cool looking stands and stuff, and that is where Project Star came in. When this game released, I tell you, it had one of the most explosive player counts that we've seen. It was the most popular JoJo's game for, I'd say, a good 1 or 2 weeks, I'd say. I think it did surpass Your Bizarre Adventure at the time. There was already some grievances with Your Bizarre Adventure even 3 years ago at this point, which is when this game released. Now, to give a brief introduction of what Project Star released like, it released in September of 2021. I do not have a precise date on me, but that's when I covered it, and I said on September 21st that it released 5 days earlier, so maybe 16th. It was a very content-packed game for something that had only just released. Most Roblox games come out, and there's really not that much to do, right? It's like the proof of concept is there, the systems are there for the developers to add content to, and you are usually pretty set for content because usually developers will actually have most of the next update ready, so there's not as much of a push or a lot of effort that needs to be put in to actually make that update happen, so they can kind of really start to build momentum for their game. And Project Star seemed like it was no different. There was a crap ton of stuff to be done in the first release of the game, first iteration. Now, there was something that really did stand out at the time, and that was visually, this game was really, really nice to look at. As you can see on the screen, there is gameplay from my channel, as I covered this as like my second game ever on this channel. Visually, it looked excellent. I think the styling, I think the theming, I think the map just all looked great. The attacks looked nice. The only problem with this game was with the combat, and this is something that never got resolved. Hitboxes felt clunky at times, PvP felt awful, and the stands were incredibly unbalanced. But, most of these problems are something that follow most JoJo's games. So what happened to this game? On October 22nd, 2021, the developers posted this statement on their Discord pages, which is basically just saying that they were losing motivation on actually making Project Star. They felt that the copyright issues could have hit them at any moment, so they were, they had trouble gathering motivation to do a game where they felt like it could be taken down at any moment. I believe this was spurred on mainly by Your Bizarre Adventure being hit by music copyright strikes, and also on character names where they had to change everything. There was nothing that actually caused the game to go down at all, but there was actually valid concern at the time, because this was the first time that really anything had happened to these games, except for like Pokemon Brick Bronze, from what I know. There was valid concern from the developers here. The content that they were expected to make was part 4 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and this would cause them to basically have to make an entire other game and put in Project Star. Now, obviously, this isn't very feasible. They also quoted that they hadn't made as much money as they would have or should have, in their opinions, for their size of game. And I find this very hard to believe, or I find that their expectations are out of whack. The Roblox pricing for some of these game passes are some of the highest that I've ever seen for games of this size, and I would like to show them to you now. Well, here we are on the Project Star game page. We've got a whopping 13 people playing right now. I have a lot of memories with this, but I would like to point this out because I feel like this is probably the only thing I just heavily disagree with the developers on. I'm obviously not a Roblox developer, but I can see the numbers and kind of make my own inferences here, right? These are the things that they were selling here, and I just want you to note the prices. They were charging 400 Robux for a private server. A lot of the time, this is a free thing or something that costs barely, like, not, I think 100 is probably about the max I've seen for most games. 1,250 for item notifier, and a lot of people bought this. Like, I think I knew more people who had this than didn't. The motorcycle, 500, like, that was just getting through the map quicker. The amount of stand slots that they were selling, like, making this much, and most players were buying these, like, a lot of people were buying these. And just for having emotes, having animations for extra style storages, player stand auras, there is no way they did not make a significant amount of money on this game. There was also more hidden transactions that you can get in this game that's outside of the store. I believe you could have bought stand skin arrows. You can also, there was a wheel in the game. It was locked to like end game players, but you could basically spin a wheel that gave you a like 1% chance of getting a kind of arrow, which gave you like a much higher chance of getting like a legendary stand with a skin on it, and that was like very expensive to roll. You could roll it free to play, but obviously it was more incentivized for you to use Robux on it. There was just no way they did not make a lot of money on this game. What killed Project Star? Well, I mean, it was a lot of things at the end of the day, but I think the main contributing factors here was the lack of motivation from the developers actually creating the game in terms of them fearing copyright issues. There's a combination of fans wanting a lot of content that the developers just couldn't realistically output in a reasonable amount of time that would keep the game alive and well. And I think it was also maybe a potentially aspect of greed or misexpectation of what they would actually make from this style of game. They were expecting a lot more, and on their launch, they felt like they didn't make as much as they could. But regardless, whatever you think in the comments down below, which I'd like to hear, I'm hoping that they do well in their future projects, and I do want to thank them for such an amazing experience. This really did give me a lot to cover on the channel. It really gave me a lot to enjoy at the time. And yeah, I'll forever treasure Project Star.